and welcome everyone to this year's United Nations Unite campaign, Asia Pacific launch of the 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence. I am your host, Cindy Surinya Bishop. 16 Days of Activism is an international campaign to challenge violence against women and girls. The campaign runs every year from the 25th of November, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, to the 10th of December, Human Rights Day. This year marks the 30th anniversary of the movement, started by activists at the first Women's Global Leadership Institute back in 1991. And to celebrate this occasion, we will be looking back at the groundbreaking achievements that contributed to progress over the last decades and future strategies to fast forward ending violence against women. We have with us in the studio today youth campaigners who will be pitting their wits against each other in a segment called Bust a Myth. And later on in the program, we will be hearing from intergenerational activists and their views about the past, present, and future of women's movements. We will also be telling you how you can get involved with this year's campaign, and it will only take 90 seconds of your time. So stay tuned. We have a packed show for you today. In the last 30 years, the world has made great strides towards gender equality and ending all forms of gender-based violence. But there are still myths and misconceptions within every culture and society that are stopping us from achieving that last mile. These myths need to be busted. And who better to help us bust these myths than young campaigners from across the region in a segment called Bust a Myth. Let's meet today's contestants. First up, we have Maya Cornelia Musa, the director of Be With You Indonesia, who began her activism at age 13 and uses TikTok to teach people about everything from women's rights and how to organize. You will be competing with Mohammed Naufal, a youth activist and member of the Scout movement who was elected as one of the youth representatives for the Asia Pacific region back in 2019. And last but certainly not least is Laura Lynn, who is a breakout star from the Generation Equality Design Challenge. Welcome everybody to the program.
Hello.
Hi.
All right. Let me tell you a little bit about how this game works. So I am going to be reading out to each of you 5 categories based on the most common misconceptions, which are consent, boys will be boys, it's always the woman's fault, bystanders, and it's always violent. So you are going to have to select one category, and I will be reading out 2 myths from within that category for you to bust. You will each get 2 goes at this, and we will be announcing a winner at the end. And you get to be as creative in your response and presentation as you like, but you only have 90 seconds each. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes, it's very clear.
All right, let's go with the first round. We are going to start with you, Laura Lynn. Which category are you going with?
I will go with It's Always the Women's Fault.
All right, here we go. The 2 myths in this category are dressed like that, she's asking for it. Second one, it's the woman's fault for walking alone late at night.
Okay, dressed like that, she's asking for it.
All right, you've made your choice. Laura Lynn, your time starts now.
If exposing a lot of skin means I'm asking for it, what else can I ask for with what I wear? Does rocking a power suit, striking a power pose before my boss mean I deserve a promotion? If I show up at the airport in beachwear, do I deserve tickets to my dream destination? I need to work for it. I need to actually ask for it. I need to give consent. Consent is not the short skirt begging for it or the long one daring you to try. Not a woman giggling, dancing sexily. Not a woman drunk, sleeping, walking alone. Not a woman alone at hers or yours. Not a woman you paid meals, drinks, gifts for. Not a woman carrying condoms, using birth control. Not a woman you're dating, engaged, married to. Not a woman who likes you or who you think wants you. Not a woman who doesn't fight back, yell, say nothing, say no, say stop. Consent one time doesn't mean consent every time. Consent to one act doesn't mean consent to all acts. Consent through fear, blame, shame, begging, pleading is not consent. Being a woman is not consent. We did not ask for it. We do not ask for it, yet you give it anyway. So whose fault is it really?
Boom! Mic drop to Laura Lynn. Amazing. You get, my dear, 5,000 points for speaking very clearly that it is not a woman's fault. Woo! Way to start off the first round, ladies and gentlemen. You have your work cut out for you. Now, Fao, it's over to you now. What category do you want to pick?
I will choose boys will be boys.
Alrighty then. Boys will be boys, and the two myths in this category are: men cannot control their anger, and two, when boys tease girls and touch their private parts, it's just harmless fun. Which one will you choose?
I say men can't control their anger.
Good one. All right, are you ready?
Yep, let's go.
Your clock starts now.
I think every man should and can control their anger. Abuse happens when the person believes that they are entitled to a certain degree of power, control in a relationship, wanting to feel superior, wanting to feel like they need to assert dominance in that relationship. This feeling somehow makes them disregard and totally ignore the feelings of their partners. So, true enough, every man is different. Every man is. Men are short-tempered, were raised in a broken family where violence is just a meal to eat on a daily. Well, some were taught that violence is acceptable in order to teach someone a lesson. But in reality, there is no excuse to why a person, a man or a woman, should be committing sexual assault or violating a woman's consent or right, no matter what urge the person has. If I'm not mistaken, there's a quote that says, "A fool gives full vent to his anger, but a wise man keeps himself under control." So to my fellow boys and men out there, don't do something permanently stupid just because you're temporarily upset. Thank you.
Ooh, I like that. I wholeheartedly agree with you. As a mother to a young son, we can most definitely teach our boys how to express their feelings in a healthy way. Nice job. Now, Fao, I'm going to give you 2,000 points for this round. Let's see if you can make up the difference in round two, okay? Over to you, Maya. Woo, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm a bit nervous, but I have to be ready, so I'm ready.
You got this, you got this. Okay, so which category are you going to pick?
I'm gonna pick It's Always Violence.
Okay, here we go. The category is It's Always Violent. The two myths in this category are: domestic violence is only sexual or physical. He has never hit her or touched her, so it can't be categorized as domestic violence. And the second one: women scream and fight back when they are being raped, so there will always be injuries as evidence. Which one?
I'm gonna pick that domestic violence is only sexual violence or physical.
All right, here we go. Your time starts now.
It doesn't always have to be physical abuse or sexual violence. You don't have to see I have a lot of bruises and that's mean I'm not okay. It can be like I'm just like smiling, loving, and doing a lot of things, but I'm actually hurt inside. You don't have to see bruises. You don't have to see someone's bleeding. You don't have to see someone's crying because the husband or the wife hit them. So that's why it's very important to address this kind of situations. And of course, it is as important as the others, violence.
Amazing. Thank you, Maya, for correctly explaining all the different aspects and the whole spectrum of violence that can happen in a domestic situation. Well done, you. I am going to award you 4,160 points. All right. All right, so round one was full of very valuable information and action-packed indeed. So we are going to continue on to round two, and we're going to go back over to you, Laura Lynn. Let me remind you of the categories, which are consent, boys will be boys, it's always a woman's fault, bystanders, and it's always violent. What category are you going to be choosing this time?
It's always violent.
All right, so let me just recap again. Domestic violence is only sexual or physical. He never hit her or touched her, so it can't be categorized as domestic violence. And the second myth is women scream and fight back when they are raped, so there will always be injuries as evidence.
I'd like to go with the first myth.
Okay, we are going to be taking on domestic violence again. Laura Lynn, your time starts now.
Just like sexuality and autism have a spectrum, so does violence. Women can encounter other types of domestic or intimate partner violence like economic, psychological, or emotional violence. If you're financially dependent on your partner because they have total control over your finances, or they deny you access to money, or they forbid you from working or studying, you've experienced violence. If you're afraid of your partner because they threaten to harm themselves, you, your kids, or they injure pets, damage property, or they play mind games, or they isolate you from friends, family, school, work, you've experienced violence. If your partner makes you feel worthless when they criticize your abilities, or they call you names, verbally abuse you, or they damage your relationship with your children, or they prevent you from seeing friends and family, you've experienced violence.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Laura Lynn, that was loud and clear. Thank you for explaining the whole spectrum of domestic violence so that we can be more educated in this whole area. You get another 5,000 points, making your grand total 10,000, Laura Lynn. All right, now Phao. Here we go. What category would you like to choose for this round?
I want to redeem myself. Can I go with the same category? Boys will be boys.
You sure can. And the two myths again are men can't control their anger. And the second one, when boys tease girls and touch their private parts, it's just harmless fun.
Let's go with the second one this time.
Alrighty then, here we go. Your clock starts now.
When boys tease girls, they are just harmless fun. This is a red alert. This has been going around even back when I was in school. The boys are laughing, the girls are crying, they lock themselves in the toilet, in the restroom, because they don't want to go out. They feel unsafe. They are not comfortable to be in the same space with all the boys, although they're classmates, although in the same school. So we need to address this, and this is a big issue because they will have they give multiple excuses not to go to the school the next day. Simply, they're going to say, oh, I'm not feeling well. I'm kind of feel under the weather, but truthfully, they're just not comfortable to be with boys. So these girls touching or even talking about their private parts, this isn't normal and it shouldn't be normal. This is a form of sexual harassment. If this is considered harmless fun, we are condoning a form of violence against women. And well, the message is clear. The bodies of women and girls are not available for others to treat as they please. Dignity, privacy, respect. Let everyone know that this has nothing to do with being harmless and there's nothing fun about it. Over to you.
Woohoo! Applause, please! You wanted to redeem yourself now, Phao. Let me just say, you did it. Thank you for explaining what harmless fun really is and what we as a community need to be doing to educate our boys and our girls. You have just earned yourself 8,000 points for a grand total of 10,000. You are now tied with Laura Lynn. All right, Maya, it's over to you for the last contestant in this round. Which category will you choose?
I would choose consent.
All right, consent. Very important topic indeed. The myths are, when women say no, they really mean yes. And once you have consent from an individual, it lasts forever. Which one will you choose?
I'm going to choose the second one.
All right, Maya, your clock starts now.
Okay. So when we talk about consent, what is actually consent? So basic consent is a basic communication rule. It's just like to just make sure or ensure everyone feels comfortable and okay. It's just like example, I asked you, do you want to go to the beach? Do you want to go to the restaurant? Do you want to eat spaghetti? And you say, yes, I want to eat spaghetti. Yes, I want to go to the restaurant and I want to go to the beach. And then because you give me that consent once, I just take you to the restaurant again and again. I just take you to the beach again and again. I just give you spaghetti every single day. Does that mean it lasts forever? You know the answer, right? Your feeling might be changed. There are so many situations that might change your feelings. The situation, and there are so many aspects that might affect that. And that is why the answer is, of course, no.
I agree wholeheartedly, Maya. I, for one, would not want to be eating spaghetti every single day either. So, for that, I will give you 5,840 points for a total of, you guessed it, 10,000 points. And the winner is everyone, all of you and all of us who are working on this, campaigning and advocating for trying to debunk the myths that are continuing to haunt our communities and societies today. And for those of you listening and watching at home, you can also be a part of this activity by joining our Mythbuster campaign. Film a 90-second video of yourself busting a myth, post it on social media with the hashtags BustMyth, 16 Days, and Game Changing. We will be selecting the most creative busts by the end of the campaign to feature via the UN Women's social media channels. Good luck! The 90s, a time when everyone was dancing the Macarena, feeding their Tamagotchis, and calling one another through public payphones. What were you doing in the 90s? Many of you watching today may not have been born then, but for Shireen Huq, the organization which she helped found in 1983, Nari Poko, was already at the forefront of women's rights in Bangladesh. A true mother of Bangladesh feminism, Shireen's motto towards activism has always been, you have to be a loud national voice if you're ever going to get anything done. Shireen, welcome to the program. Take us back to the 90s. What was it like campaigning back then for women's rights?
Well, first of all, we did not have the facility of the internet and cell phones. I think that makes a huge difference. I watch young women now, they're so internet savvy, and in our time, there was a lot of effort that had to be put in to mobilize people, to get people, first of all, interested in an issue, second of all, to be willing to act on that issue, and third of all, to be willing to act publicly on that issue. So it was quite an effort. And in the 90s, there was still a lot of stigma around violence against women. It was not a matter of public discourse. And violence against women was still at that stage where, starting from families to organizations to the public, everybody would tell somebody who had been subjected to violence, hush, hush, don't talk about it, especially if it's somebody close to you. And if it's a family member, then, you don't talk about it. Sweep it under the carpet. You have to put up with this. You're a woman. That was the kind of reactions in the 90s, which is very different now, very different. Now, families are telling their daughters, don't put up with this. If you face if you face violence in your marital home, come back. You still have a place to come back.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, listening to you, you see a lot of progress, but then we still see many, many issues that need to be addressed. What are some of the milestone successes you think the movement has had in Bangladesh and in Asia as a whole so far?
Well, as I said, number one, violence is now part of the public discourse. Yeah. There is less stigma to talk about it. And people and the women who have suffered violence are beginning to be seen as survivors and not just victims. And there is an effort to support them so they can move from being victims to survivors. So this is something I think has definitely changed, not only in Bangladesh, but everywhere. And secondly, specifically for Bangladesh, I think we have actually introduced some institutional measures to help women who are subjected to violence. We have one-stop crisis centers in the main hospitals, in the main district hospitals, which means that at the level of the state, there is recognition that these people are your citizens and they deserve as much attention and as much support as anybody else.
So, what do you think are some issues from the 90s that are still valid today that need our attention and our action?
Lots, unfortunately, lots. I would say that even though the stigma has been largely, the stigma is largely gone, but still society, families tend to, especially if you're a rape victim, they still tend to treat it as a loss of honor, and as a loss of honor for the family, for the village, for the nation. There's no end to it. In terms of legal measures, we still have a lot of problems. We talk about legal equality. Our constitution talks about legal equality, but we have, for example, one law on which we are working on right now is the Evidence Act, in which Section 155(4) allows this. This is a law we inherited from colonial times. It's a British law from 1872. So we've been independent twice since then, but we have not changed this law. And so this law allows for presentation of character history of the complainant. So if I've been raped and I go to court, the court has the right to hear evidence about my sexual history and decide on that basis that I am not a legitimate complainant. My own sense is these are universal issues. Maybe the degree, they may vary in terms of degree of severity, degree of importance, but I think the basic issues cross-cut. For example, the issue of honor, conflating honor with bodily harm is something that seems to cut across.
So thank you so much, Shireen. We're going to throw it over to you, Shamathia. Shamathia Fernando is the youngest person ever appointed to serve on the World Board of the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts, who is also recognized by the U.S. State Department as one of the 10 emerging young leaders in 2017 for her work on empowering girls and young women against gender-based violence. Shamathia, after listening to Shireen, how do you feel about the 30 years of the 16 days of activism? And is it different for the next generation of campaigners like yourself?
Thank you, Cindy. And I must say that, listening to Shireen saying all of that and how it has been 30 years ago when, she was campaigning, probably I was not even born at that time. It really kind of inspires me, and I think what they have, the kind of work that generation has done to the movement, to women and girls worldwide, is what is the kind of legacy that we are kind of building up on. So I feel, in a way, I think over the years we definitely have seen the kind of progress we've made, but I also feel strongly that there are so many areas that we are lagging behind. And there are so many issues and struggles that we still continue to fight. 25 years ago, we did not have internet and social media and tech-based violence and harassment. But today, that's one of the biggest issues we have, especially I think overall for girls and women, but definitely for adolescents and young people. So I think that's one area that we constantly advocate for, to have more strengthened laws and policies come in to really address harassment that's happening or violence that's happening in online spaces or tech-based harassment. So one kind of effort that I worked on was, working on this educational curriculum that really went into the younger generation from the ages of 5 to, 25 years, to really educate them on, what are the root causes and how do we have to speak out and take action, and how to break these stereotypes, how to, bust these myths and, bring change, not only in the kind of concrete changes we see, but also about perception, about attitudes, about behavior people have. And when we addressed these adolescents and young people, we did not only address to the girls and young women, but also to the boys and young men, because that's also very important, that we should be telling them that what they're doing is also wrong. And this is how they should also be, treating each other as equals. But I also feel, digging deep, the kind of struggles we probably had, we've also seen some of the progress that's happening in terms of the kind of changes that have happened. It's not that we have not really achieved anything, but the thing is that when it comes to gender equality, I think the progress is a little bit slow. So I think definitely there's so much work that needs to be done, but I'm sure the kind of, the different generations that we work together with will make it possible for all of us to, achieve that change.
For sure. You hit the nail on the head when you said, with the advent of social media and all this digital opportunities also brings a whole new set of challenges. So it doesn't stay exactly the same. So how do we then navigate this together? So how do you think both generations can help work together towards ending violence against women?
I think we have been always working together. And I think there is always, sometimes we have certain challenges. We find that we always speak about the intergenerational gap, not having that understanding. But for me as an individual, my experience have been a little different, because the kind of activists I've worked with across generations have been really, have mentored me, have really supported me. I've learned so much from them. And I think they've also kind of motivated for me whenever I feel down and I feel like so frustrated that the kind of change I want to see in the world is not happening. They've also said, no, you have to keep going and working hard at what you believe in. So it's also about us having that understanding that, it's also, we need to have the next generation coming forward to work together with us. So for me as a young person who's just 20 years old, but I always see how can I have more adolescent girls involved in the work I do. And one other critical aspect I want to bring in is about media and the kind of role that media would have. And I think it's important, especially when we speak about gender-based violence, given that this is 16 days of activism, I think it's important to bring into light that, reporting cases like gender-based violence, rape cases, child abuse is very, very sensitive. And you need to be extremely responsible in how you narrate that story. So I feel this is the right time for us to bring that kind of emphasis into these areas. And I think the campaign that UN Women Asia Pacific office is working on really busting these myths around these issues and, kind of in a way giving the facts and the reality is very, very important.
Yeah, for sure. It is a multi-generational issue, and it's going to probably take multi-generations in order to move towards our goal. But it's not to say that that can't happen, and it can't happen soon. So back over to you, Shireen. Listening to what Chamathea has to say, how are your views on working together in order to help end gender-based violence?
Yes. First, let me say I'm just so impressed with Chamathea and what she's doing, and she's just so much more articulate. That's the other thing. I think the generation now is much more articulate and able to voice these things much more clearly than we were. I think, of course, we have to work across generations. And I'm glad to say that last year, at the initiative of younger women, we formed something called Feminists Across Generations, and which we call in short FemGen. And we have been working together since then. And clearly that has made a difference. I just want to highlight one or two differences that it has really made. I think until last year, we were very focused on always using the term violence against women and refused to use the term gender-based violence, particularly for the reason that we felt that we were not comfortable with shifting the attention away from women, as the UN has been doing, and that there was still so much to be done for women and so many struggles and so many battles still to be fought. But last year, these young women came in and then brought in a new perspective, which is the perspective of other genders who also suffer violence. The other thing is that including men and boys, and this year on March 8th, we actually had men. And this is again something that the younger women have brought in. And so these are changes that we are adapting to, and we are learning that these changes are important.
Thank you so much for both of your passions, for all the work you have been doing in this space, and for continuing to be an inspiration for so many other activists, women and men, so that we can really get this under control. Don't go anywhere yet. I want you to meet our next guest, who is definitely not born in the 90s. Her name is Mia Gary, and she's a 12-year-old campaigner who has led and facilitated multiple programs for the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts, and is passionate about speaking up about body confidence, busting body image myths, and stopping violence against women. Welcome, Mia, to the program. Can you please introduce yourself to everyone?
Thank you, Cindy. I am Mia, and I am a 12-year-old feminist. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Mia, can you tell us why you are so interested in advocating for the rights of women and girls?
Well, this is my topic. This is what I'm passionate about. And this is what I want to advocate about, ending violence against women. Okay, so let's imagine if a child is in a household where violence takes place and she sees her parents fighting every single day, then she will grow up into an adult who thinks this is normal. Later, when she faces similar issues as an adult, she may accept it and she won't report it, she won't react against it. She will pass on the same beliefs to her next generation, and the cycle will continue on forever within the families and workspaces. I want to break this cycle of violence so that when I grow up, I don't have to attend sessions about why gender-based violence still exists in our society. I talk to friends and reach out to as many people as possible to support this advocacy. I use my YouTube channel to invite as many students and also our teachers to support our cause. And I also want to encourage everyone to take steps, even if it's small, so that we can stop the cycle of violence. And I believe that getting the teachers involved is also a really big step in stopping gender-based violence. Because who's going to help you when your parents can't? Who's going to help you when they are not able to help? Who is your secondary guardian or parent? Your teachers, right? That's why I feel that the teachers must know about gender-based violence and how to act in a situation where their student is in danger of emotional, physical, or mental abuse. And we have to educate the community to be able to raise voices against violence happening around them and not being a silent bystander. Women and girls will then know that they're not alone and they can protect themselves and the people around them, and they can reach out for help. Finally, yes, I am a 12-year-old and I believe that everyone can change the world by doing their bit. So please let the generation participate and lead decisions that affect us and our community. And as they say, 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Thank you.
Thank you, Mia. So young, yet so wise and insightful. Thank you for being with us today and for inspiring us with your words. For our final segment, I would now like to welcome Neil Boone, Regional Director, UN Development Coordination Office. Hello, Neil. Thank you for being with us.
Sawadee ka.
Sawadee ka. It's been 30 years since the start of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. What has changed?
A lot has changed and not enough has changed. COVID has had an effect on women, and particularly on levels of violence against women, show that things have not changed enough. And when people were in their home again, tensions came up, and men hit women, men hurt women, and women didn't have the means to defend themselves, didn't have proper shelters to go back to, didn't have legal systems to help them deal with that. And that has to change. I hope that's one of the lessons that comes from COVID.
Yes, for sure. So much has changed and not enough. So on this issue of gender-based violence, what is expected from world leaders, CEOs, and other champions for change?
So leaders have to make sure that the veil is lifted, that this is happening. This is something that affects everyone. At the same time, they have to, as I've said to a certain extent before, model behavior about how to deal with it. And one issue is lifting the veil, but another is putting in place safe spaces for women to share the experiences. I think leaders, CEOs can make a difference, but if they're not showing that leadership, this is an issue that will come up again, as it has with COVID, as it has in other circumstances. The leadership has to be consistent too.
So true. From what I hear, all of your answers, the issue of first recognizing the problem, realizing the consequences of one's actions, and then creating that safe space and leading by example are all ways in which we can tackle this issue head on together. So thank you so much, Mr. Neil Bune, for your thought-provoking and honest insights today.
Thank you.
Yeah. And that, ladies and gentlemen, has been this year's United Nations Unite campaign Asia Pacific launch of the 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence. On behalf of the United Nations Unite campaign, I would like to thank all of our guests today, as well as all the stakeholders and government partners for your support throughout. Don't forget, you can also be a part of our Mythbuster campaign by simply filming a 90-second video of yourself busting a myth, post it on social media with the hashtags BustMyth, 16 days, and game changing. We will be selecting the most creative bust by the end of the campaign to feature via the UN Women's social media channels. Stay tuned for the 16 days of activism throughout our social media pages, and do comment, participate, and share your commitments with us. Thank you for attending today's event and to being our partner in the quest towards eliminating gender-based violence. I wish you all a very good day. Goodbye.